Global bond yields were spiking around the world, and global equity markets, stock markets, were selling off across the board. Just understanding the dynamics in play, nothing matters to this market except artificially suppressed rates, currency devaluation. So if the Fed and central banks didn't get in here and start taking action, now we got a big problem here. This whole thing, as you well know, is teetering on a knife's edge. The debt market monster hyper bubble in debt that we have, it looks like they're going to continue to inflate it just to continue to kick the can down the road here. And all this means is we, the people of the world, are going to be forced to deal with monumentally worsening debt situations here across the board. And central banks are in here. They're buying it all. That's their end game and that's their goal. It allows them to inflate. I mean, it's just no coincidence that at the same time, immediately bond yields around the world are not just falling, they are cratering. And what this is doing is putting a fire underneath the equity markets, despite the fact that we got bad economic news this morning. We found out yesterday that producer prices continue to rise, and we find out today that consumer prices continue to rise, and no one saw this one coming. It was all unexpected. But, this is, in my view, direct intervention, coordinated. I don't believe in coincidences. All these bond yields now dropping at the same time when it had to happen. If it didn't happen very soon, like I kept telling people immediately, that's kind of like, urgently, it was just going to end, and they know that. They're watching the debt market just like we are. We are witnessing something right now in our face. Everyone knows what's coming. Everyone knows we're going to a tokenized system. The bridge in this country is being built right now. We're going to be the crypto capital of the world. They're going to mainstream cryptocurrencies as to allow us to accept it. And then, of course, comes the next phase. This is just the opening act, what we're moving into right now. And then the crisis will, of course, hit. We're already in a crisis, a full-blown liquidity crisis on a global scale. Henceforth, why they continue to inflate. They can't stop. But what are people doing about it? There's no pushback. Unfortunately, people have been, conquered. So they just sit back and they take it. And then when it happens, they wonder what happened. I just don't understand. Honestly, human behavior is a very interesting thing. People are focused on other things right now. And we have, the political spectrum continuing to assign blame because that's what it's all about. And that's what they're going to set up to when the system actually melts down. And again, we were just on the precipice of this with the debt market because that's where this whole thing is going to begin and end. You got everyone focusing on the stock market, which is absolutely wrong. You have to focus on the debt market because that's the real issue here, and everything has become a derivative of that. The stock market as a whole, nothing matters. Fundamental factors anymore, forward guidance, PE ratios, all this stuff that should matter don't matter anymore. And we're going to get much more of this. There's just no doubt about it. We were promised during the campaign that that's what we're going to get. And now we have the guy to do it, unfortunately. But that's the way it's going to work. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. Whoever they put there is just a puppet anyway. It's central banks who control the system, and I want people to start to wake up to that. And unfortunately, people don't. They still believe that in a system that no longer exists. I've been warning and screaming from rooftops for I don't know how long, trying to explain to people that the banking system is a black hole. They are all holding record bad debt. Their exposure to the debt market here, a big part of what we're seeing now, the deregulation of the banks under the new regime coming in, the merging of with cryptocurrencies is maybe some type of a backdoor bailout. I one way or the other, it's not going to work. I still say we're going to see probably more than one major financial institution on Wall Street fail, and I've been pointing my fingers at Bank of America for a very, very long time. This was just last week. It came out that Bank of America is holding a huge amount of bad debt with regard to the bonds, and they're all in the same boat. This is not just Bank of America. Now, with regard to insurance companies, people have no idea of how the system works, of course, and they're not supposed to know. It's not the insurance companies that are actually going to be responsible here. We're going to pay for it, and I'm going to tell you how. These insurance companies, they look to mitigate risk. So what they do is they package up their risk assets and sell them off to investment banks in the form of credit default swaps, meaning if there is a default on the part of the insurance company, another entity, in this case an investment bank, is going to be responsible for paying those losses to the insured here. But the fact of the matter is, we're already being told who's going to be responsible for this all over the media. They're already telling us that there's no cash there. They're telling us that there's going to be a federal bailout, money from we the people. There's no talk at all about the credit default swaps. This is how insurance companies work, and I urge everyone to look at it for yourself. They're not solvent at all. And just like last time, who was responsible for it? Well, we were. Does anyone believe that the new administration is going to allow major Wall Street institutions to fail on their watch? Or do they believe that it's going to be, unfortunately, we the people who are going to bail it out again? And that's exactly what's going to happen. People better get used to it, and they better start believing that that's what they're going to see, because I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way out of it. The world economy is contracting at its fastest pace ever on record. Meanwhile, debt is surging at its fastest pace ever here. It's a crisis in the making. It's all about liquidity. Liquidity is drying up here, going back to what we were talking about earlier here. The system is going to lock up. There's no doubt about it. They're going to offer this solution. I believe as the economy deteriorates faster with debts and deficits skyrocketing moving forward, and anyone believing that the polar opposite is going to happen, well, you've been lied to as well, and unfortunately you believed it. No, that's going to continue as well. And as the economy continues to free fall, you're going to hear calls for lower rates, even negative rates here. If people can't see it, that means they just don't want to see it because it's too obvious. The system is so warped right now, and it's all being built again on the back of hyperinflating debt. We must be, it's literally become survival, be on the opposite side of that trade here. It's again, all boils down to the hyperbubble in debt that we have, which is responsible for the world stock markets hitting record high, as the economies of the world are contracting, as people are being completely disenfranchised from the system. There is a particularly dangerous pattern in the S&P 500 right now, which I just put out this morning. It doesn't mean that the selling is over. This can't just stop here. The intervention that it appears that central banks have taken to buy more debt, suppress rates, and obviously drive cash into the stock market, this can't just remain static. Being on the opposite side of that means being in real assets, hard assets, things that actually have had value for thousands of years. Now, the mechanism is very simple, and people are getting upset about it. And I warned this would happen because of the mechanism involved where cash seeks yield. You've seen a lot of cash make its way into cryptocurrency spaces. People are angry. They say, well, hold on a minute. What's happening to my gold and silver? Because cash seeks yield is going to go to where there's the most, in the short run here, best chance of it going higher. But eventually, a debt market implosion is going to happen. It's going to melt down stock markets of the world. And when that happens, cash is just going to make its way, as you and I have discussed multiple times, into other assets. And I believe with all I got, that it's going to make its way into artificially suppressed assets. I mean, I'm talking about gold, especially silver here. I still say it's going to make its way into to crypto as well. It's just the way I think it's going to play out here. But if I had to pick one spot to be in, I would rather be in silver above all. I want to be in something that I can actually hold in my hand that will hold value. But that's how I see this whole thing playing. Look, I've been telling people to buy cryptocurrencies for many, many years. I think that call was correct, even though a lot of people told me I was wrong and it was going to zero and I was leading my people astray. Now that we're becoming the crypto capital of the world, although Trump was absolutely against crypto. In fact, he called it a con game and everything else you can imagine. Now all of a sudden it's the greatest thing in the history of the world. I wonder how that just happened. Okay, I get it. Maybe he saw the light, or maybe he was just told what to say, which is more than likely the truth. I believe they're going to force upon us an issue with resources. Again, the debt market implosion isn't about the markets. It's about locking up the system, and that's the crisis. Get people to react to it. In other words, you can't transact. Most people swipe and swipe and swipe their debit cards, their credit cards. They can't get their cash out of the bank, and the credit freeze, which was the real issue in '08, and people have no idea. That was what was happening here. The credit markets were locking, and that's why Bernanke was rushed into Washington before a loving caring representative, and he said on that weekend, if we don't do this, in other words, pump billions into the economy right at that moment, we would not have an economy, not a market, an economy by Monday. That's what they're pushing us into now, another credit freeze. Everyone's fixated on the stock market, and that's the wrong place to look. Debt market, that matters. I think, unfortunately, most people are still asleep. People don't wake up generally until it's way too late. If people are not already starting to invest heavily, in my opinion, okay, and use your own judgment on this, everyone listening, in commodities, especially silver, gold, then you're just going to miss it. You're going to lose.